Rates are coming down. So the big question is, should I wait to purchase?
You better get fired up.
Happy Friday, my man. How you doing?
I am great. It is Friday. Thank you for reminding me. That's awesome.
It's Friday. That's right. It's almost pool time. Sundays are my day off, man. So I'm looking forward to the pool. But it's been chilly out. I don't even know what it is today. Is it even 80?
No. When I looked a few hours back, it was in the 60s.
Woo! That's chilly. And I'm from Minnesota, so I should have thicker blood in me, but I think it's all kind of gone away. I'm an old guy now in Florida. So what do you do? So, Nate, let's start this off by first addressing, have rates truly gone down? That's a rumor that a lot of people are talking about, but a lot of people too don't realize that rates go down and then they go back up and then they come back down and then they go back up. So it's kind of relative to, okay, what are you talking about? So could you talk maybe about the last 3 to 6 months of rates and where we're at today?
Yeah, we've definitely seen some fluctuation over the last several months. Let's condense it to a 3-month window. And we've seen rates that were peaking in the 8s come back down into the 7s, go back up to the 8s, come back down to the 7s. I would say over the course of the last 3 or 4 weeks, we have seen some gradual rate reductions. But I want to make sure that I'm also framing that with, when I say we're seeing rate reductions, we're not seeing 0.25%, 0.5% rate reductions. We're seeing day over day that rates are getting better by 0.1%, or maybe the cost of the rate has improved, but the rate itself hasn't really moved too much. Today, as a matter of fact, job numbers came out and they were not where everybody expected them to be. And today we're going to see rates probably come out. Well, what time is it? After 11? Rate sheets today are probably going to show higher rates than yesterday. I'll tell you that. We'll see what happens over the next 15 to 20 days, but today's rate sheet is going to be higher than yesterday's.
Okay, so Nate had said that, the rates have gotten a little bit better, but the pricing of rates have gotten better too. Talk to us about what that means. Pricing of rates. What does that mean?
Yeah, so every lender is going to have a bit of a different cost when it comes to getting the same rate. I went over an exercise earlier this week with a group of real estate agents, showing them how when you look at multiple lenders offering the same rate, let's just call it 8% for the sake of conversation, every lender's cost for an 8% rate is going to be a little bit different. And the cost just means how much out-of-pocket expense is it going to be to the buyer. So you've heard people talk about buying points. When we're looking at getting an 8% rate, how much does it cost me to get that 8% rate? Some lenders are going to say, hey, it doesn't cost you anything, Joe. I'll give you that rate and it's not going to cost you anything. Some are going to say, I'll give you that rate and I'll give you a small premium. Maybe I'll give you a $200 lender credit. Other lenders are going to say, hey, Joe, you want that 8% rate? It's going to cost you $200. So when we look at the cost, the price to get the same rates, sometimes there's going to be fluctuations between lenders. So when we're seeing rate improvements, that doesn't mean that the rate itself has actually moved. It just means that instead of it costing you $200, maybe now it is free. Or maybe it's going to give you a benefit of $200, a credit of $200, but the rate itself is static.
Yeah. And I think it's important for everybody to know that, yes, it'll differ a little bit from lender to lender, but it also differs from loan type to loan type, right? You're going to get a different rate on an FHA versus a VA versus a conventional. And it also differs depending upon your credit. And it's not just your credit score. A lot of what they're looking at is your credit history. And it depends on the type of property you're purchasing. Are you going to be purchasing a homestead, just your run of the mill, hey, I'm purchasing this home for my family? Or is it a rental that you're going to rent out? Or is it a piece of vacant land? Or all these things have different rates, right? So I'm going to ask Nate a question here shortly that he hates, and all lenders hate it. And I get why, which is what are rates looking like right now? And the reason it's tough is because it depends. Do they have horrible credit? Do they have perfect credit? Are they looking at an FHA loan or a conventional loan? It's really tough. So I'm going to put a little pressure on Nate here to give us some numbers for some different scenarios. But I'll tell you guys, if you're serious buyers, if you're just watching because you're interested in what the market's doing, cool. Listen to it for entertainment purposes. But if you're genuinely thinking, hey, this is something I want to get done in the next 2, 3, 4 months, don't take this video and let this be the educational thing that you need to be successful, right? You need to get in touch with someone like Nate who can actually run your specific situation with your specific loan type, the specific property you're looking for, and they can give you specific numbers. I'll tell you too, let's just say rates are at 8%, as Nate had said, right? The other day, I want to say, and quote me or tell me if I'm wrong here, Nate, rates were maybe somewhere in the 7.5, 7.75 range. And we had somebody who switched to an FHA loan, and I can't remember if he paid points or not, but he ended up getting 6.75%. So you'll hear, right? Somebody will be with another lender and they'll hear that Nate's buyer got 6.75 and they think, oh, Nate's magical. And trust me, Nate is magical. But sometimes it's just you got to ask the right questions. You got to look at the different loan types, and you might have worse credit than that particular buyer had. So it really depends. But Nate, now I'm going to ask you, where are rates now? This is 3 questions in one. Where are Nate rates now? Where do you foresee rates going in the 3, 6, 12-month future? And I think the most important thing, at least for me, is why do you think that? What are you seeing right now? What are you hearing that you think is going to impact rates most over the next 3, 6, 12 months?
Right. So getting back to what you were just saying, Joe, there's a lot of different things that go into where rates fall. There's 26, 27 different things that kind of adjust where rates are. Some of them have higher weight than the rest, but there's a lot of things. It's not just credit score. It's type of loan. It's type of property. It's zip code. There's a lot of different things. So rates right now, I would say you're probably, if you're getting a conventional vanilla everyday loan, I would say today, without quoting APR, you're probably going to be somewhere between 7.75 and 8% for most people.
If you're not paying any, you're not paying any major points.
For that, no.
No.
I would say most people with great credit, putting down a good amount of money, average guy, let's just say that, the average Joe, no Rosen intended, is going to probably be 7.75 to maybe 8% today. Where rates are headed, we think, based on the Fed saying that they're going to have some reductions in the federal fund rate, which again is not a mortgage rate, but those things tend to influence mortgage rates. They could influence them up or they could influence them down. It just all depends on the sentiment and if people believe that the Fed's doing it for the right reasons. But the Fed's starting to say that they have a grasp on what's going on with inflation, and they're starting to see that they can drive the inflation down a little bit. So with the Fed saying that they plan to do that next year, we're starting to see a little bit of relief in rates. So maybe in the next 6 to 8 months, we will see rates come down a little bit. And again, what does a little bit look like? I'm not saying we're going to have 3 and 4% rates, guys. We're not. I don't want anybody to think that. And if you read that on the internet, it's completely based on fictitious things. Yep. We're not going to be in the 3s and the 4s. We could see rates come down into the low 7s. We could see them get down into the 6s, maybe. But what happens if you wait 6 or 8 months to get those rates? You're going to end up paying more because then everybody else is going to come back in. The prices are going to go up. And what you think you're saving in rate, you're losing in appreciation, amortization, and it's getting wiped almost completely away by the home price. So that's not to say wait 6 or 8 months to buy. That's to say in 6 to 8 months, people that are buying might be able to get the exact same monthly payment that you have now at the higher rate.
So let me ask you this, Nate. Let's just say, because it sounds like you're saying rates could drop maybe 3/4 of a point if we're lucky. And I know that's a complete guess, and you've got 83 asterisks to that. But let's just say, I'm going to put you on the what's the word I'm looking for? I'm going to put a little pressure on you. Yeah. Let's just say I'm looking at a $400,000 home, and my rate is currently 7.75. But I decide to wait, and my rate comes down 3/4 of a point to 7. What kind of savings am I looking at per month in principal and interest? 7 versus 7.75 on 400 grand.
Okay, let's look at it. So 400 grand. Yep, that's 4.
And guys, while he's running this, I want you to know why I'm asking. I just did a video on this maybe a week or 2 ago where my whole pitch was, as a dad, right, talking to my daughter, don't make a decision based on what's comfortable or convenient. Right now, it is not comfortable to get into a rate that most of us perceive as high. Why do we perceive it as high? Because we have been extremely blessed with 2, 3, 4% interest rates for years. So that is our perspective. Based on that perspective, current rates are high. If you look back 20, 30 years ago when rates were 17, 14, 12%, 7.75 sounds incredibly attractive, right? So it's all about perspective. So I understand fully that prices are higher than people are comfortable with and rates are higher than people are comfortable with. But the suggestion I would give to my daughter is quit basing your decisions on your emotions. Instead, have someone like Nate run the numbers. And the coolest thing that's going to happen, you got two things that could happen. Either Nate is going to tell you you're wrong, and the numbers on owning are going to be better than the numbers on renting, and he'll show you the why. Another thing that'll happen is he'll say to you, you're right. It doesn't make sense looking at this analysis for you to purchase. I would continue renting. Here are the pros and cons. Either way, you're either going to buy a home where you wouldn't have, and it's going to help you better off wealth-wise, or you won't, but now you'll have the confidence of knowing that there's a logical reason behind the decision that you made, and it's not made on an emotional whim, right? So that's really what I try to drive home in these. I love selling $1 million homes, man. I get paid on commission, so obviously I love that. But I'll tell you, there's nothing more fulfilling to me than taking someone who's been blowing all their money on rent for years, and that's all they've ever been exposed to because their mom and dad rented, their grandparents rented. That's all they know, and they've built up no equity in their home. They've got very little wealth, and I can get them to purchase a home. And then 5, 10 years later, they give me a call, they send me a text, and they say, holy crap, Joe, I've got 6 figures worth of equity in my house. I can't even imagine selling right now. I've never seen a 6-figure check. That is the most fulfilling thing that happens in my business, and it is awesome. That is why I do a lot of these videos, guys. So again, I'm not trying to lead you down a stray path, but if we can take you from renting and blowing all your money on somebody else's mortgage and get you into your own, and now you can build wealth, that makes my day, right?
Absolutely.
So Nate, I think I carried the attention there for a while for you.
Yes.
So let's talk about that 3/4 point difference. 400 grand, 7.75 versus 7. What's the savings per month?
Sure. So at $400,000, 775, which is 7.75, your principal and interest payments about $2,866. If we cut a quarter off of that and we get it down to 7.5, then your payment goes down by $70, and that would bring it down to about $27.97. If you were able to take another quarter off and get it down to 7.25, your payment's going to go down to about $27.29. So it's an $82 savings with that 0.5% gain. But if that happens, let's talk about it again, that your home price, the loan amount, is going to go up incrementally as well. So let's just say at that 7.25, where now you're in at $27.29. Let's just say that you have to finance an extra $25,000. It's not $400,000. Now it's $425,000. That $27.29 payment jumps up to $28.99.
Yeah. And I would add, if you got in a year prior, at the end of the year, right?
Yeah.
Even though your value, you paid less in price, which is awesome. Your rate's a little bit higher, which is less awesome. But at the end of the year, you've got a lot of equity into your house, right? I would guess, Nate, tell me if you think I'm wrong, you've probably got $7,000-8,000 in equity built in. Would you say that's close?
I would say that's pretty accurate. Without going through the math, that sounds accurate.
I'm guessing here, but I paid $390 for my home, and now my rate was different, right? But in that first year, I want to say I paid down maybe $9,000. So on a $400,000 at a little bit higher rate, I'm going to guess it's a little bit less, maybe 7-8 grand. So my purpose in saying that is Nate is right. If you wait, yeah, you might get a better rate, but with that rate is likely going to come a higher price. Why? Because now buyers are attracted to that lower rate. That's the big fear or concern from a lot of people in this industry with people waiting is, I don't know if that's going to really help you with prices, right? But the second thing is you just missed out on saving yourself $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 on a $400,000 home. If it's a bigger home, it's an even greater savings. And you're taking all that money and you're paying down Nate, the landlord's mortgage for him. And that's what I'm trying to stop. That's what I want to get you guys to. Again, I know it's uncomfortable, but holy smokes, if we can get you in there. One more thing I want to say is a lot of folks will say, excuse me, I don't have the cash, right? And they don't understand how little the difference is between cash needed on a rental and cash needed on a purchase. If you're looking at what numbers were you just giving me on 7.25 for a monthly?
7.25 at $400,000.
Yeah.
Your payment's 27.29.
Okay, so let's just say $3,000, right? If you've got a $3,000 payment on a rental versus a $3,000 payment on a house, on a rental, you're going to need first last deposit. That's $9,000, right? $3,000 times 3, first last deposit. That's $9,000. If you're going to buy a $400,000 home and you're a first-time home buyer, you might be able to do it with a conventional loan for 3%. If you're a VA buyer, which is, prior military, you can do it for 0% down. But even if you're, not either one of those two, you can do FHA with 3.5 down. Right now, you absolutely, if money is the big deal, you can absolutely find a seller who will cover your closing costs. It might not be the first home that you like and put an offer in on, but I promise if you're out there hunting, you can find that. And now you need 3.5%. 3.5% of 400 grand is 14. So 14 minus 9, you're looking at $5,000 more. Now, let me ask you this, Nate. If I'm looking at 14 grand instead of 9 and I'm short on that $5,000 difference to become a homeowner, roughly the same monthly payment, it's just $5,000 cash more out of my pocket. Can I get my family to help me with that $5,000?
Absolutely. And you can have multiple donors. Absolutely. So you can have your uncle give you a little bit, your aunt give you a little bit, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, sister.
What about my IRA or my 401k or just something where like it's $5,000? It's not going to change my retirement plan, but it's going to change my housing plan and help me to start build wealth. Is that something I can pull from?
You absolutely can. And a lot of the 401ks will give you what's called a home buyer loan, where it doesn't impact your taking out cash early. You're going to have to pay it back. Obviously, it's not giving it to you to keep it out, but they're not going to give you the tax penalty and the implications that usually come with early withdrawals. But you'll have to talk to the 401k holder, the financial institution that holds it, to understand what the terms and conditions are. But that's absolutely an option for sure.
I'd say this too, guys. Remember, go back to the quit making emotional decisions, start making logical decisions. A lot of people, when I mention that, they say, oh, I'm not going to touch my 401k. I'm not going to touch my IRA. That's crazy, right? That's my future. When you take that $5,000 we're talking about, right? The difference between what you would need in cash for a home versus what you would need in cash for a rental, and you take that out of an investment, right? Let's say you've got stock in Walmart, or you've got the S&P 500 index fund, or you've got bonds, whatever it is, you bought $5,000 worth of Walmart or the S&P or the bonds. You've got an investment of $5,000. You paid $5,000 for it. If you were to take that $5,000 out of your 401k, your IRA, and put it into a house, you just took $5,000 and leveraged it into putting a $400,000 asset into your pocket. So when your $5,000 worth of Walmart goes up 10%, you're looking at $500, which is great. But when your house worth $400,000 goes up half that amount, 5%, that is a $20,000 increase in value on a $5,000 investment. And you're just not going to get that in stocks. No. So again, my pitch is tell a nerd, right? Your financial advisor, your accountant. Nate's the biggest nerd I know, man. Call him. I'm a nerd. And we will run the numbers and we'll show you the pros and cons of all these scenarios. But just get rid of the I got to make decisions based on comfort. I got to make decisions based on my emotions and actually look at the numbers. That's my opinion. Nate, give us some final thoughts to close us out here, bud.
You're spot on with what you're saying, Joe. The amount of money that you're going to take out of this investment, let's say it does grow 10% over the course of a year, you're going to grow it so much more being in the house. But the other thing that a lot of people don't really remember is when you make a mortgage payment, Some of it goes to interest. Absolutely. That's what everybody's focused on. What's my interest rate? What's my interest payment? The other part of that people forget about is that you're paying down the loan. So at the same time, on a monthly basis, you're getting a little bit more equity in your house, but you're also paying off a little bit of that loan. So at the end of the year, at the end of 5 years, that amount of money that you've paid down and the amount of appreciation that you've gained dwarfs any small gains that you're getting on your S&P 500 or your Walmart stock, right? So, I mean, it's just huge, huge numbers.
So let me see if I can share screen here. I'm going to ask you in a second if you can see my screen. There, can you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so guys, right up here in the top left, you can see I've got $400,000 over a 30-year term, and it's at 7.25%. We're looking at principal and interest. 2728, I believe that's exactly what Nate had shared with us. Look at this though. Just look to 12, right? Or I'm sorry, I thought this was months. So this is years. Look at the first year. A lot of people are going to say, "Holy smokes, I'm paying $29,000 in interest. That's crazy, Joe." Right? And you're paying a total of, it's roughly 29 and a hair under 4. Let's just call it 32.5-ish. It's probably 32.7. So you're paying 32.7 that year. And you're like, "Oh my gosh, that's $33,000 out of my pocket." Dude, you're paying that out of your pocket anyway if you're renting.
36,000 if you're renting, and then your payment's 3,000 or 300. Yeah, 3,000 a month.
Yeah, but here, $3,800 goes to principal.
Yeah.
Okay. The next year, $4,100 goes to principal.
Yeah.
After 10 years, you can see you bought it for $400. You owe $345. Oh, by the way, in 10 years, I'm going to run some numbers here. Let's just say real estate goes up 3% with inflation. Let's just say, right? 1.03. Do I have of course I don't have that button on here. Okay, so I can go, I'm going to do this on my calculator because I don't have it on here. So I'm going to do some math that is going to show how nerdy I am. 1.03 to the 10th power is 1.344. So let's go 1.344 times your $400,000. So the number I'm about to show you is what your home would be worth if you bought it for 400 grand and it went up a measly 3% a year, which inflation is higher than that, right? It's been going up a lot faster than that. Your home is worth 537 in 10 years. It's worth 537 and you owe $55,000 less. So now you've got just shy of $200,000 of equity in 2 years. And that is a one-time decision that you've made in your life. And that's only 10 years.
Exactly.
That is a wealth builder, right? Not to mention the fact that, yes, your insurance and taxes can go up, and they will go up. But guess what? On a rental, as your taxes and insurance go up, that landlord is raising your rent, right? Everybody's raising their rent. There's no way they're going to keep that at a loss.
No.
So that you're paying taxes and insurance increases either way. But when you rent, you're also going to pay an additional increase to pad that landlord's pockets.
That's right. You're making a mortgage payment anyway.
Yes.
It's just not yours.
Yes. People forget that. But when you own that, whatever the number was, $2,800, $2,700 a month, it never changes. You're on a fixed loan. It never changes for 30 years.
Right.
So your payment right now, if you've ever had a grandparent and they're like, my mortgage payment is $493. Yeah, that's because they bought the home back in 1997, right? And they've just been paying that same $493 every single month. You're going to be the grandparent in 30 years bragging about your little $2,700 payment.
Right.
And everybody else is paying $6, $7, $8 for what's considered an average home then.
Right.
I can't push this enough because for 95% of people, it makes so much sense. So anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox. I think I've done my good deed for the day. Nate, I appreciate you joining us. Are you coming to lunch today at 1:00?
I am not coming to lunch today at 1:00, but next time. And I'm excited to come down and visit you and the group tomorrow.
That's right. We got our Christmas party tonight. Oak and Ember, Kyle Green, if you're watching, we're excited, buddy. I'm going to tell you too, Nate, we've got a waitress that I absolutely love. Her name is Erica. She's phenomenal. I used to be a bartender and a waiter, so I'm really picky on my service. That woman blows my mind. I think she might be the best server I've ever had. So you're not only getting, well, you were at our party last year, so you had her last year. Do you remember
Yes.
her?
Yes, I did.
She's
Yeah.
incredible. So
Yep.
I'm excited. Anyway, guys, thanks for joining us. Have a phenomenal Friday and an even better weekend. Take